What's going on, guys? This is ETA Prime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at some DreamCast emulation on the all-new GPD XD Plus. If you're not familiar with the GPD XD Plus, I did a video. I'll leave a link in the description. We're still going to go over some specs in this video because I want everybody to know what we're working with before we get started here. The XD Plus retails anywhere from $199 to $160 depending on where you get it. We'll go into IDA64 here. GPD XD Plus, 4GB of DDR3 RAM. The unit does come pre-installed with Android 7.0. I'm not sure if they have any plans to update any further. The CPU is a 6-core Mediatek MT8176. It uses the big little core architecture, and the main performance cores are clocked at 1.8 GHz. You might see on some websites that it says 2.1 GHz. They are clocked at 1.8. Has a 5.5-inch IPS 720 display, and the GPU is a PowerVR GX6250. It's really not a bad GPU for modern games, but when I look at one of these, I see it as a little emulation machine. This GPU is not great for emulation. I'm going to show you in just a second how DreamCast performs. CPU performance plays a big part with emulation, but with a lot of these newer emulators like DreamCast, PSP, the GPU does really help. I'll be using Recast for all of this DreamCast test, and I'm using one of their CI builds. The one on the Play Store is a very old version, and I wanted to get the latest updates. I'll leave a link in the description to their website where you can download these CI builds. I also tested the version from the Play Store, and there's really not much of a difference between the two. I got a lot of games to test here. First one we're going to do is Shim Moo. So I just want to mention I don't have any frame skip on yet. I'm going to test it out. Right out of the box, we're not even hitting 30 FPS. This game should be running at 60. Even 30 is decently playable with a game like this, but we're not hitting that. I'm going to go into the config menu, turn on frame skip. When I hit the plus, you should see the minus light up, which means I have frame skip on. Frame skip is now set to 1. It will not increase the FPS, but it should smooth the game out in harder to play areas. I'm going to turn it off because it's just not going to help out here. There's not a lot going on. Frame skip is now off. I'll go to widescreen. This is a harder game to emulate on Android, so I'm not really worried yet with the GPD XD Plus. I was pretty sure it wasn't going to play this at full speed. As you can see, we're down to 15 FPS. I'd be happy with even 30 FPS, even though this should run at 60. The game is still playable at 30. There's a lot of popping going on too. We got a lot of stuff coming in. It has a lot to do with this PowerVR GPU. The frame rate's going to go down even more when we get into the city. That's why I just wanted to show you this here in the courtyard, because if we're getting the performance here, it's going to be worse in the city. So this is a no-go on the GPD XD Plus. We're going to move on to another game. Here's Resident Evil Nemesis. No frame skip. Pretty poor performance. And for some reason, I cannot use my gun. My buttons are mapped correctly in the Recast emulator. It just will not allow me to use my gun in this game. I had a similar issue while I was trying to test out Test Drive 6. I could not accelerate. I tried remapping my buttons in both of these games, but the buttons will not respawn while I'm in game. I'm not sure if it's the emulator's fault or the device's fault. I'll never really be able to tell until some kind of update is released and everything works. Okay, so with a bunch of zombies around me, we're getting about 21 FPS. When we get into this warehouse, the frame rate should be increased because we don't have a lot of sprites on screen. There's not a lot being rendered at once. So even through the warehouse, we're not hitting a constant 30 FPS. It's not looking great for the GPD XD. 29, 30 FPS is okay. I mean, you can play this game at 30 FPS. I believe it originally ran at 60, like most games on the DreamCast. So we're only going half speed here. Frame skip is totally off. This isn't a really fast-paced game, so you could get away playing it even at 20 FPS, but in my opinion, it just wouldn't be enjoyable. We're going to head over to another game. Here we have GigaWing 2, one of my favorite games for DreamCast. This game should be running at 60 FPS, and in order to play it correctly, you need that frame rate. This is a very fast-paced game. I mean, 30-35 FPS just will not cut it for something like this. I'm gonna die here soon. I can feel the lag actually. I've played this game a lot on my original DreamCast, and I can tell you running it on this GPD XD Plus, there is a lot of input lag. I've put many hours into this game. It's just not going to be playable. Here's Power Stone 2, another really great game for the DreamCast. I really wish they would remake these. Should be running at 60. We're only at half speed. So far, this is not looking great for DreamCast emulation on the GPD XD Plus. I'm going to be cutting this video short here. I can already tell you where it's going to go. I'll test one more game after this, but if we're running at half speed with all these games, it is not worth it for DreamCast emulation. Sonic Adventure 2. I had to turn the sound off. I will give you a little clip here. It does have to go back off though. This is a copywritten song. It's running like garbage. I'm going to try to add a little bit of frame skip here. I absolutely hate frame skip. If I can avoid it, I do at all cost. Just looks like crap. This should be running at 60. With frame skip on, we're at 11. Without frame skip, we're at like 25. I know I said this was going to be my last game to test, but there's one more. Everybody always wants me to test out Jet Set Radio, so we're going to try that out now. This is another one of those games with copywritten music. This is actually some of the worst DreamCast emulation I've ever seen. I have seen Amlogic CPUs emulate this game better. Hopefully GPD can do something about this. Has to be some kind of driver issue with the unit itself. Alright guys, you saw it here. DreamCast is horrible on the GPD XD Plus. The original GPD XD emulates DreamCast better than this version here. Hopefully GPD can do something about this. I'm really disappointed in this unit so far. Now for regular emulation it's great. SNES, NES, Neo Geo does a really good job, but it's really struggling with DreamCast like you saw, and even some PSP games. I was expecting this to come up and blow the first generation out of the water, but it hasn't happened. I really appreciate you guys watching. I'm going to be doing more videos on this GPD XD Plus. I got some PSP games planned, some PlayStation 1. I'll even dive into some more Sega Saturn. If you want to check out my first video, links at the top of the description. If you're interested in picking one of these up, I'll also leave links down below. Like always, thanks for watching.